I remember the day clearly when Evelyn told me about her sudden urge to take a solo vacation to Spain. We were sitting in our cozy apartment, surrounded by wedding plans and color swatches. With our wedding just a few months away, Evelyn had always been spontaneous, a quality I usually admired, but this time it felt different. Her blue eyes sparkled with excitement as she talked about the beaches, the culture, and the adventures she couldn't wait to have. "Think of it as my last big adventure before becoming a Mrs.," she had said, with a mischievous grin. I wanted to be supportive, to show that I trusted her completely, so I swallowed my unease and nodded. After all, what could go wrong? The weeks leading up to her departure were filled with her enthusiastic preparations. I helped her pack, making sure she had everything she needed. On the day of her flight, I drove her to the airport, my stomach twisting in knots I couldn't quite explain. We kissed goodbye, and she promised to call me every day. I watched her walk away, her blonde hair bouncing with each step, a sense of foreboding settling over me. For the first few days, everything seemed fine. Evelyn sent me pictures of her exploring Barcelona, visiting Gaudi's masterpieces, and lounging on the beach. She called me every night, her voice filled with excitement and stories of her day's adventures. But as the days went on, her calls became less frequent, and when she did call, she sounded distant, almost detached. I chalked it up to the time difference and her being tired from all the activities. One night, she didn't call at all. I stayed up, staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. The next morning, she sent a brief text, saying she had lost track of time at a beach party and fell asleep at a friend's place. A beach party. My mind raced with images of Evelyn surrounded by strangers, drinking and having fun. I tried to shake off the jealousy and remind myself that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. Evelyn returned home 2 weeks later, and I was at the airport, anxiously waiting for her. When she emerged from the gate, I felt a rush of relief. She looked beautiful, her skin tanned and glowing, but there was something different about her. Her smile was a little too bright, her eyes a little too wide. She hugged me tightly, almost desperately, and for a moment, I felt everything was back to normal. But as the days went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Evelyn was distant, often lost in her thoughts. She avoided talking about her trip in detail, brushing off my questions with vague answers. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was being paranoid. She was probably just tired from the trip and needed time to readjust. A month later, Evelyn dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. We had been planning to start a family after the wedding, but this news came as a shock. She sat me down in our living room, her hands trembling as she held mine. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a bit sooner than we planned, but I hope you're happy." I was stunned, but then joy quickly replaced my shock. I hugged her, kissed her, and told her how happy I was. We were going to be a family. But beneath my happiness, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered doubts. I pushed them away, refusing to let anything ruin this moment. We went ahead with our wedding plans, and everything seemed perfect. Evelyn was her usual charming self, and everyone commented on how radiant she looked. The wedding day arrived, and as she walked down the aisle, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. We exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other forever. As we kissed, sealing our union, I felt like all my doubts and fears had been unfounded. Life after the wedding was blissful. We moved into a new house, preparing for the arrival of our baby. Evelyn seemed genuinely happy, and I started to believe that my earlier suspicions had been nothing more than paranoia. We attended prenatal classes together, decorated the nursery, and talked about our future as parents. Everything was falling into place. However, as Evelyn's due date approached, she became more irritable and moody. I attributed it to the stress and discomfort of pregnancy, trying to be as supportive as possible. But there were moments when her temper flared for no apparent reason, and she would lash out at me over the smallest things. I tried to brush it off, reminding myself that this was just a phase, and that things would get better once the baby arrived. The day our baby was born was the happiest day of my life. I held our daughter, looking into her innocent eyes, and felt an overwhelming surge of love and protectiveness. Evelyn seemed genuinely happy, too. Her eyes filled with tears of joy as she cradled our newborn. We named her Lily, after Evelyn's favorite flower. For the first few weeks, everything seemed perfect. We were a happy family, adjusting to our new roles as parents. But soon, cracks began to show in our perfect facade. Evelyn's mood swings worsened, and she became increasingly distant. She spent hours on her phone, often hiding it when I walked into the room. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One night, as I was rocking Lily to sleep, Evelyn's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She was in the shower, and without thinking, I picked it up. The screen displayed a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. You can't keep ignoring me." My heart pounded in my chest as I unlocked her phone, my hands trembling. I scrolled through the messages, my worst fears coming true as I read the conversations. Evelyn had been in contact with a man she met in Spain, and the messages revealed everything. She had gotten drunk at a beach party, slept with him, and now he was claiming that the baby might be his. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. The betrayal was like a knife to my heart, and I could barely breathe. Evelyn walked into the room, her eyes widening as she saw me holding her phone. "What are you doing with my phone?" she demanded, snatching it from my hands. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Did you cheat on me in Spain?" She hesitated for a moment, then her expression hardened. "It's none of your business. What happened in Spain stays in Spain." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "None of my business?" "Evelyn, we are married. This is our family. Our child we're talking about." She rolled her eyes, her demeanor cold and dismissive. "Oh, grow up, Jake. People make mistakes. Get over it." Her words cut deeper than any blade. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully in my arms, and knew I couldn't let this go. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had married and planned a future with, had been lying to me all along. In that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Evelyn's betrayal destroy me. I would fight for my daughter, for the truth, and for my own sanity. This was just the beginning of a long, painful journey, but I knew I had to see it through. I had to uncover the full extent of Evelyn's deception and decide what to do next. As I stood there, holding my innocent daughter and staring into the eyes of the woman I no longer recognized, I knew that my life would never be the same again. The shock of Evelyn's betrayal lingered like a dark cloud over my days. I tried to function normally, but the weight of what I had discovered was too much to bear. I found myself constantly replaying our conversations, looking for signs I might have missed, wondering how I could have been so blind. Evelyn's coldness and indifference only grew. She acted as if nothing had happened, as if her infidelity was a minor hiccup we should just move past. Meanwhile, I was drowning in a sea of doubts and questions. I needed answers. I needed to know the truth about our daughter's paternity. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, I sat down with Evelyn. I tried to keep my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. "We need to talk," I said. She barely looked up from her phone. "About what?" she asked, her tone dismissive. "About the baby," I replied, struggling to keep my emotions in check. "I need to know if she's mine." Evelyn sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Oh my God. Jake, are you still on about that? I told you. It was a mistake. It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," I snapped, unable to contain my frustration any longer. "I deserve to know if Lily is my daughter." She glared at me, her blue eyes icy. "Fine. You want a DNA test? Go ahead. But don't expect me to grovel or beg for your forgiveness." Her words stung, but I was resolute. "I'll arrange it," I said, standing up, "and until we know the results, I think it's best if we keep some distance." "Whatever," she muttered, returning her attention to her phone. "Do what you want." I walked out of the room, my heart heavy with a mixture of anger and sorrow. This wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. The Evelyn I knew was kind, loving, and full of life. But this person in front of me was a stranger, someone who seemed to take pleasure in my pain. The next few days were a blur of phone calls and appointments. I arranged for a paternity test, hoping that somehow, against all odds, Lily would turn out to be mine. I couldn't bear the thought of losing her, of having to let go of the little girl I had already come to love so deeply. When the day of the test arrived, I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Evelyn was indifferent, barely acknowledging the significance of what was happening. I took Lily to the clinic, my heart breaking as they swabbed her tiny mouth for the test. "We'll have the results in a few days," the technician said kindly, seeing the distress on my face. I nodded, holding Lily close, praying for a miracle. Those days of waiting were the longest of my life. Evelyn continued her charade of normalcy, while I could barely function. Every time I looked at Lily, my heart ached with love and fear. What if she wasn't mine? What would I do then? Finally, the call came. My hands trembled as I answered the phone, bracing myself for whatever news awaited me. Mr. Ryan, we have the results of the paternity test, the voice on the other end said. I'm afraid to tell you that you are not the biological father of Lily. The words hit me like a freight train. I felt the room spin, my world collapsing around me. I thanked the technician mechanically, hanging up the phone in a daze. I sat there for a long time, staring into space, trying to process what I had just heard. Lily wasn't mine. The woman I had loved, the woman I had married, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And now I was faced with the devastating truth that the daughter I had adored wasn't my child. When I finally found the strength to confront Evelyn, she was sitting on the couch, watching TV as if nothing had happened. The test came back, I said, my voice hollow. She glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. And? Lily isn't mine, I choked out, the words catching in my throat. Evelyn shrugged, her expression indifferent. I figured as much. Does it really change anything? Her callousness was like a slap in the face. Of course it changes everything, I shouted, unable to contain my anger any longer. You lied to me. You let me believe she was mine. She rolled her eyes. Oh, get over it. Jake, you're still her father in every way that matters. Biology isn't everything. You don't get to decide that, I yelled, my voice breaking. You don't get to make that choice for me. She stood up, her eyes flashing with anger. And what are you going to do about it? Leave me? Take her away? Good luck with that. Her words were like poison, seeping into my soul. I felt a wave of hopelessness wash over me. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved turned into this cold, heartless stranger? I want a divorce, I said quietly, the finality of the words hanging in the air. Evelyn laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. Oh, Jake, you think it's that simple? You think you can just walk away? I can, and I will, I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I'll fight for custody of Lily. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her from you. Her smile faded, replaced by a look of fury. You'll regret this. Jake, you'll regret ever crossing me. I turned and walked away, my heart heavy with sorrow and resolve. I knew it wouldn't be easy, that the road ahead would be filled with challenges and heartache. But I also knew that I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. As I held Lily that night, watching her sleep peacefully in my arms, I vowed to do everything in my power to give her the life she deserved. I would fight for her, for the truth, and for the chance to rebuild my life. This was just the beginning of a long, painful journey, but I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that I was doing the right thing. For Lily, for myself, and for the future we both deserved. The decision to leave Evelyn marked the beginning of a grueling ordeal. Her reaction to my declaration of divorce had been cold and venomous, but I knew she would fight tooth and nail to maintain control over the situation. I steeled myself for the battle ahead, determined to protect Lily from her toxic influence. I contacted a lawyer the next day, laying out the whole sordid story. Mr. Harris, a seasoned family attorney, listened patiently as I recounted the events of the past months. He nodded sympathetically, his expression grim. This won't be easy, Jake, he said, folding his hands on his desk. But with the evidence you have, we have a strong case for custody. It's going to be a tough fight. Though, are you prepared for that? I nodded, resolute. I'll do whatever it takes. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, documentation, and emotional turmoil. Evelyn, true to her nature, was infuriated by my attempts to take Lily away. She unleashed her fury in every way possible. Nasty texts, slanderous accusations, and even attempts to turn our friends and family against me. She painted herself as the victim, claiming I was abandoning her and our daughter. Her lies were relentless, and it was exhausting trying to counter each one with the truth. I felt like I was constantly on the defensive, fighting a battle on multiple fronts. Despite the stress, I found solace in my time with Lily. Every moment with her strengthened my resolve. I couldn't let Evelyn's deceit ruin her life. I had to be the stable, loving parent she deserved, even if it meant enduring hell. One evening, after another heated argument with Evelyn over the phone, I found myself at my parents' house. They had been my rock through this nightmare. offering unwavering support and love. My mother, a gentle and wise woman, took Lily from my arms, cradling her with a soft smile. "You're doing the right thing, Jake," she said, her voice soothing. "Lily needs you. You're a wonderful father, and she will see that one day." "I just don't understand how Evelyn can be so heartless," I admitted, my voice cracking with emotion. "She used to be different." "She let her worst traits take over," my father chimed in, his voice stern but understanding. "Sometimes people change, and sometimes they reveal who they truly are." I nodded, grateful for their reassurance. I needed their strength to keep going. The next court date loomed ahead, and I knew it would be a critical juncture in this battle. The day of the hearing arrived, and I walked into the courtroom with Mr. Harris by my side. Evelyn was already there, her expression a mix of anger and defiance. Her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman with a cold demeanor, stood next to her, whispering strategies. The proceedings were intense. Evelyn's lawyer painted a picture of me as a volatile, unfit parent, while I presented evidence of her infidelity and neglect. It was emotionally draining, each side hurling accusations and counter-accusations. But the turning point came when Mr. Harris called our neighbors to the stand. They testified about the nights they had heard Evelyn's angry outbursts, the times she had left Lily unattended, and her frequent disappearances. Their testimonies painted a stark picture of a woman more interested in her own whims than in caring for her child. Evelyn's facade began to crumble. She glared at our neighbors, her composure slipping as their words exposed her true nature. I watched her, feeling a mix of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for what we had lost, but relief that the truth was finally coming to light. When the court finally recessed, I felt a glimmer of hope. Mr. Harris patted my shoulder. "We've made a strong case. Jake, let's hope the judge sees it that way." The following weeks were agonizing. Waiting for the judge's decision felt like an eternity. Evelyn's harassment didn't let up, but I tried to rise above it, focusing on Lily and our future. Then, one afternoon, the call came. Mr. Harris's voice was steady but tinged with satisfaction. "Jake, we've won. The judge has granted you primary custody of Lily." I sank into a chair, tears of relief streaming down my face. "Thank you," I whispered, overcome with emotion. That evening, I took Lily to the park. As I watched her giggle and play, a sense of peace washed over me. The battle was far from over. Evelyn would likely continue her attempts to undermine me, but this victory was a significant step toward securing a stable, loving environment for my daughter. Evelyn's reaction to the court's decision was predictably explosive. She called me screaming and threatening, but I had learned to tune out her venom. I knew I had the law on my side and the truth on my side. Our friends and family gradually saw through Evelyn's lies. Those who had doubted me began to offer apologies and support. It was a bittersweet vindication, but I focused on rebuilding our lives, one day at a time. With the custody battle behind me, I turned my attention to the next steps. I enrolled Lily in a daycare close to my new job, creating a routine that provided stability and comfort. My parents helped immensely, offering to babysit and support us whenever needed. As the months passed, Lily thrived. She was a happy, curious toddler, and her laughter became the soundtrack of our lives. I found joy in the simplest moments, watching her discover new things, hearing her babble and giggle, and holding her close as she drifted off to sleep. Evelyn, true to form, continued her attempts to disrupt our peace. She filed appeals, sent nasty messages, and tried to interfere with our lives. But I had grown stronger through this ordeal. I refused to let her toxicity seep back into our lives. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, I sat down with my parents. We talked about the future, about my hopes and fears. My mother, ever the wise one, offered some final words of advice. "Focus on building a life filled with love and positivity. Jake, let go of the anger and resentment. Lily needs to see that her father is strong, loving, and resilient." I nodded, knowing she was right. The past had been painful, but the future was filled with possibilities. I vowed to be the best father I could be, to provide Lily with a life full of love, security, and happiness. As I kissed Lily goodnight, I felt a sense of peace and determination. The road ahead might still be challenging, but I knew I could face anything for her sake. Our new beginning was just starting, and I was ready to embrace it with all my heart. Months turned into years, and slowly, the chaos that Evelyn had introduced into my life began to settle. Lily grew, blossoming into a lively, curious child whose laughter could light up the darkest days. My love for her only deepened, and my resolve to protect and nurture her remained unshaken. Despite her relentless attempts, Evelyn's influence began to wane. Her appeals were dismissed one after another, each ruling reinforcing my custody rights. The court had seen through her facade, and her lies held less and less sway. Eventually, she stopped showing up for the hearings altogether, perhaps realizing that her battle was lost. The peace that followed allowed me to focus on rebuilding our lives. I poured my energy into my work, providing for Lily, and creating a home where she could feel safe and loved. My parents were an invaluable support, their home becoming a second haven for Lily. She adored her grandparents, and they cherished every moment with her. Yet, the shadows of the past still lingered. There were nights when the memories of Evelyn's betrayal would surface, gnawing at my peace. I often wondered if I would ever be able to fully move on, to let go of the hurt and anger that had defined my life for so long. It was during one of these restless nights that I made a decision. I needed closure, not just for myself, but for Lily. She deserved to know her story, and I needed to face Evelyn one last time to finally put the past to rest. I reached out to Evelyn, proposing a meeting. To my surprise, she agreed. We chose a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. The familiar anxiety gnawed at me as I walked in, but I reminded myself of the purpose of this encounter. I was doing this for Lily. Evelyn arrived late, as I expected. She looked different, older, more worn. The spark of defiance that once defined her seemed dulled, replaced by a weary resignation. She sat down across from me, her eyes avoiding mine. "Jake," she greeted, her voice flat. "Evelyn," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thank you for coming." She shrugged, glancing around the cafe. "What do you want?" "I want closure," I said, meeting her gaze, "for both of us, and for Lily." Her eyes flickered at the mention of our daughter, but she remained silent. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what I needed to say. "Evelyn, you hurt me more than I thought possible. You lied, you cheated, and you tried to destroy my life. But despite everything, we have a beautiful daughter who deserves the truth." She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "What do you want me to say, Jake? That I'm sorry? That I regret everything?" "I don't expect an apology," I replied. "I've come to terms with the fact that you'll never fully understand the damage you've done. But I need you to understand that Lily is my priority. She's happy, she's thriving, and I won't let anything jeopardize that." Evelyn's expression softened slightly, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt Lily. I made mistakes, big ones." "We all make mistakes," I said quietly, "but it's what we do afterward that matters. I'm willing to put the past behind us, for Lily's sake, but I need you to respect the boundaries we've set. She deserves a stable, loving environment, and I intend to give her that." She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands. "I understand, Jake. I do, and I'll try to respect that." It wasn't the heartfelt apology I had once hoped for, but it was enough. I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. "Thank you, Evelyn. I hope you find some peace in your life." She watched me go, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of closure. The chapter with Evelyn was finally coming to an end, and I could focus entirely on the future with Lily. The years continued to pass, filled with the joys and challenges of parenthood. Lily grew into a bright, compassionate young girl who constantly amazed me. We shared countless adventures, from camping trips to baking disasters in our kitchen. Every moment was a testament to the strength of our bond and the love that had carried us through the darkest times. One evening, as we sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Lily turned to me with her big, curious eyes. "Daddy, can you tell me the story of how we came to be?" I smiled, pulling her close. "Of course, sweetheart." I told her a version of our story, one that was age-appropriate, and focused on the love and determination that had brought us to where we were. I spoke of the challenges we faced and the strength we found in each other. I wanted her to understand that no matter what, she was loved and cherished. As I finished, she hugged me tightly. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Lily," I whispered, my heart full, more than anything in this world. In that moment, I realized that despite the pain and betrayal, we had emerged stronger. Our journey had been fraught with heartache, but it had also been filled with love, resilience, and growth. Evelyn's betrayal had tested me in ways I never imagined, but it had also shown me the depth of my love for Lily and my capacity to endure. Looking into my daughter's eyes, I knew that the future was bright. We had created a life filled with joy and love, a life that was ours to cherish. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them, hand in hand with the most important person in my life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over us, I felt a profound sense of peace. Our story was one of survival and triumph, a testament to the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. And with that bond, I knew we could overcome anything the world threw our way.